Good morning, everyone, and happy Wednesday. So far, the market is not looking the best this morning. It's not tanking down, but it's definitely not rising up. It's very mixed. Tom, Delta reported earnings this morning, and that was pretty decent. They actually had some pretty good numbers. We can dive deeper into that report later in the stream if you guys want, but Delta's up with earnings. They're up around 4%, which is great. On the other hand, Tom, JP Morgan is not looking good because they also reported earnings and they're down close to 4%.
Yeah, they're down quite a bit. Now, they did come in actually really close with their EPS. They did come about 10 cents under that, but either way, they reported that the Russia situation actually hit them for like $500 million due to relocations and different stuff like that. But as you can see here, it just continues to move lower, Mike, on the chart. And let's look at that daily chart because JP Morgan is making new yearly lows here. You know, they're starting to move pretty low. They're all the way down to 126. We were at 170 or 172 just a few months ago. So to see us down all the way to 126 is pretty drastic out of these big banks. And, you know, like I said, it looks like they got hit by that Russia situation. We can see that they mainly blamed market dislocations for the main reason. But, man, I mean, it's definitely not good. And you can see how their revenue actually came in above the estimate. But, you know, it did cause them to lose some money there.
Yep, I gotcha. So, yeah, that's interesting in that sense. Tom, can you pull up the earnings calendar really quickly, just for the rest of the day and tomorrow?
Yeah, definitely. And tomorrow's going to be big because, like, the rest of the day today, we don't have too much after the market opens, or I should say after the market closes. But Thursday before open, we're going to have some big banks again, like Wells Fargo, Goldman, Citi, and Morgan Stanley. So that's definitely going to make for some crazy trading, especially with JP Morgan falling like this. Like, let's go check out Wells Fargo real quick, and you can see they're even down this morning.
Yeah, interesting. How's Bank of America doing?
Bank of America's also down, but at market open, they actually got a nice green candle back up. But yeah, I'm not going to be too bullish on them today with the other banks kind of falling off. But I will say it's good to see them popping up like this. I didn't notice any of the others popping. Maybe Goldman has a bit of a green candle going on, but nothing crazy yet.
All right, there we go. So, Tom, I'm also seeing some pretty good movement out of these cruise lines, as I guess we would expect, because the airlines and the cruise lines kind of move together. And, yeah, I mean, they're doing decent, but, like, it's nothing crazy yet, though.
Yeah, it's not. It looks like Carnival's trying to break out above this resistance right here. Like, Carnival's trying to break out above 19. They're up around 2.4%, which is pretty nice. But as we know, sometimes these cruise lines and airlines can have some pretty nice moves. So who knows, if we start exploding up through $19, I think CCL might have a pretty good move, Mike, along with Royal Caribbean. You're right. These cruise lines overall are doing pretty great. Even Norwegian is trying to break out. There's a pretty big resistance on Norwegian here, right around 2075. And it looks like they're really trying to break this. So, Mike, I really love these setups, to be honest. This looks like one of my favorite sectors to play today.
Yeah, there we go.
Actually, yeah, look, it's breaking out actually right now.
Yeah, actually, I was just going to move on, but hold on. I want to stay on this for a second. So I'm just going to look at, like, the daily chart of, like, CCL and stuff like that. Like, it doesn't look bad, you know? Like, I'd have to do, like a full-on fundamental analysis if it's, like, at a good spot for the long term. But, like, just for, like, a short-term trade, like, it is setting up pretty well. It's making higher lows, and of course it's been making lower highs because of everything that's been going on over the past year. But what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think it's at a decent level here. You know, there's a pretty big support, kind of like where we bounced here on the stock around $18. And intraday, I feel like there's a lot of great opportunity. Like I said, we just broke 19 and we're starting to run up a little bit. So I feel like it's better for intraday plays right now. But I do feel like that that the airlines and the cruise lines both will start to do better maybe towards the end of this year. You know, I know right now they're still not reporting great revenue numbers and stuff like that. Even their EPS is still negative. Even in Delta's case, you can see they reported a negative 1.23 EPS, but they are reporting like good bookings and just good travel numbers in general. So I think that'll help out both of these sectors, the airlines and the cruise lines. And I do think maybe for the next I will say like maybe for the next couple quarters, I think that these sectors will start to get pretty hot. Keep in mind, though, that there is some issues with Russia going on. So if that continues to make an effect or start to play a role, then obviously this can change. And also we've been seeing an increased, I guess you could say, COVID cases over there in China right now with that new variant. So that's definitely another thing to keep on the radar too, because I know that really affects airlines.
Alrighty. And then we have with the first question, Caleb saying, how low do we think JP Morgan will drop? So let's take a look. JP Morgan, of course, this is the multi-million-dollar question. They are coming back though, Tom. Like they really bounced off of 126 and it's holding its ground pretty well. I would say we would have a lot more clarity tomorrow after the other bank stocks report. For example, like we have a ton of bank stocks reporting earnings tomorrow. If for some reason all of those bank stocks shoot up, then JP Morgan will most likely hold up a lot better than if those other bank stocks also break down and start selling off. So we will have much more clarity tomorrow after those ones report. Looking at JP Morgan, Tom, in terms of like charting, what would you say are like the biggest support levels like over like the past couple of weeks and past couple months?
You know, looking at JP Morgan here, the past couple of weeks, we're honestly breaking down to new yearly lows here, which is pretty insane. But as we start to rise up, there was this low from last Thursday, right around like 128.75, you could say. Maybe that'll pose as a bit of resistance as we start to move up. I'm also seeing 130, and then after that, 131. So I think there is some good resistance levels overhead. As far as support, it definitely looks like 126 is good today. What I was actually doing, Mike, is I was kind of going back on the max daily chart here, because like I said, we're making new yearly lows. So we have to go back pretty far to find some good supports here. And to be honest, like the whole area between like 125 and 127 seems like there's been some great supports in the past. So hopefully this is the bottom for JP Morgan, Mike. But like you said, if the other banks sell off tomorrow, JP Morgan will probably start blasting through this lower support level like at 126. So definitely keep that one in mind. And like I said, Mike, I think 126 will be the main level to watch.
All right, good to know. So doing another scan, Tom, these travel stocks are doing very, very well today. United Airlines blasting up. American Airlines blasting up. Of course, CCL, like we already covered. Even some of these, I wouldn't call Boeing a travel stock by any means, but like they kind of move with like airlines sometimes. So yeah, I guess you can say Boeing. What else do we have moving? It looks like Twitter's on the high ticker as well. Let's see, Twitter. Yeah, Twitter's not looking too bad. And Tom, even like Nvidia's having a decent day so far.
Wow, it really is actually. Nvidia's kind of bouncing off this 215 support, which should do pretty good. So hopefully this continues today out of Nvidia. Like you mentioned, these airlines are continuing to move up. Twitter really was surprising, Mike. Like, I can't believe they're moving back to the upside. I can with Elon being there, but you know what I mean? It's just pretty crazy to see them flying up like this morning, especially after yesterday. I will say the sell-off yesterday made me a little bit sad, especially since Elon Musk has been making all these announcements, but who knows, maybe we'll have like some bad like hostile takeover news soon, Mike. Maybe that'll be good for Twitter, but it might make them volatile in the shorter term, but we'll have to see. I know Boeing was one of my favorite plays from yesterday, Mike, and man, it's finally breaking out. So they finally broke 178. They're all the way up above 180. So they really had a nice pop today, but man, I'm seeing a lot of these stocks moving ahead of earnings. Kind of like you said, a lot of banks are starting to move, but look at Taiwan Semiconductors. They're actually having a nice pop this morning, and they report earnings tomorrow before open. So this is going to be a big one to watch because these other chip stocks are starting to move well too. And who knows, this might be the bottom for TSM.
Interesting. How's like Intel doing? Because I know like a lot of the other chip stocks have been falling off, but it seems like Intel has been at least holding its ground better.
Yeah, it kind of has. You know, it only fell from 52 down to 47, whereas we're having stocks like AMD falling from like 125 all the way down to like 95. So there's definitely some bigger moves going on the other chip stocks, but Intel's been, you're right, it's been holding up better, but it also has been on the downtrend at least the past couple weeks. But it looks like today it's starting to like form a nice support down here right around $46.50. And you know, it looks like it's having some nice moves up. So I will say, like, looking at the chart here, Intel's been consolidating a lot, and I am definitely waiting for another move back to the upside here, especially on that daily, because, man, that sell-off on the daily looks pretty drastic there.
Yeah, I've been saying this for a while, Tom. Like, I've been considering buying Intel. It's been a while. I still have not made any significant moves. I don't know. I'm holding off for now. Like, their fundamentals are pretty great, Tom. You know, you can't deny that. You beat me to it with the dashboard. They make a lot of money. They're in a great industry. They're a powerhouse company. But obviously their stock has not done very well over like the past, what would you say, over the past almost 20 years, right? Like, it's still below that 2000s dot-com bubble high.
Yeah, it really is, and that's pretty telling there. You know, I know that it's still below this high. I'm not going to knock them for that, but I will say, though, that the past like 5 to 6 years have definitely not been the best. You know, they've just been consolidating, it seems like, ever since 2017. Like, obviously in like 2012 through 2016, you know, they were still going on a nice uptrend trying to recover back. But, you know, I guess it's just regular price action maybe, Mike, but who knows? You know, they're definitely consolidating a lot. There's a big support here at like $44, but you know, we have had other big players coming in like AMD, Nvidia, and companies like that have been kind of overshadowing Intel. So I feel like that's also maybe part of their bad movement the past couple of years. But I will say, hopefully they come out with some good, you know, like maybe some good technology advancements or something like that. I know they recently just came out with some new like ARC graphics card processors. So that's going to be pretty big to see. I know it's not like this ARC thing that they came out with. It's not necessarily like NVIDIA's graphics cards, but it's supposed to be pretty good for laptops at least.
Gotcha. Like, I've looked at Intel's fundamentals. They're really good. We can make a whole video dedicated to Intel. I will say this though, Tom. My concern with Intel is like over the past 2 to 3 years especially, basically any and every chip stock exploded up. Whether it's AMD, NVIDIA, TSM, anything, right? For the most part, it exploded up. And my concern is that, like, why is it that every single other chip stock exploded up? Like, why is it that in a time where the market loved chip stocks, like, that Intel didn't really get that same sort of, like, move? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, Intel increased a decent amount from 2018, but like it's at 47 right now. Like, and I'm sure, I think Hunter's watching, so I'm sure he'll have something to add in the comments. But that is a concern of mine, though. You know, like I said, their fundamentals are awesome, but it's like, why is it that in a time where all the other chip stocks get a ton of love, why is Intel not a part of that?
You know, I'm starting to wonder, Mike, if some of it has to do with the dividend yield. I know that Intel pays the 2.997% yield. So I know that's pretty big. I don't know what they used to pay in the past. I know this definitely could have been going up over the past few years. But, you know, like looking at AMD, they don't really pay a dividend. NVIDIA pays a dividend, but it's so minuscule that I don't think it even matters. Yeah, like 0.093%. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I'm sure it does, but also, Mike, like, I think there could be an argument said that as Intel started to maybe do better here, or as they started to rise in like 2017, 2018, that was kind of like right whenever, you know, like the Bitcoin mining craze was going on, and like right whenever AMD started to become a dominant player. I'm wondering if a lot of the money that was in Intel started transferring over to AMD and NVIDIA. And I think that that could have been the case because, as we know, Intel's been around for a long time, and, you know, those stocks have been heating up the past maybe 5 years or so. So I feel like maybe that has something to do with it as well. But that just goes to show that those companies are bigger innovators and people are more excited about their future than Intel's future. But who knows? You know, Intel could still make some announcements or something.
Yeah, and I think part of it also has to do with hype. Let's go back to the dashboard for 1 second really quickly. So, and then I want to look at a graph that compares mainly revenue. So if you can like change like the biggest graph to revenue, that would be awesome. Like the one, yeah, perfect. So the main thing I'm looking at is revenue. Let's look at Intel, right? Tom, can you just actually cross out the gross profit? So if you can just press, thank you so much. So looking at Intel, right? We can see in 2019, they had an annual revenue of, what is that, like 29 billion, something like that? Was that, 29 billion. Let me just double check something really quickly. So 29 billion, it looks like. Oops, sorry. 29 billion. And then in 2021, that ran up to, what is that? Oh my gosh, Tom. I was reading the wrong thing. All right, sorry, guys. So 2019, officially, annual revenue, $72 billion. 2021, annual revenue, $79 billion. It increased, right? That's awesome. But then let's go to AMD, right? Same comparison. 2019 to 2021. Their revenue went from, let's see, what is that, Tom? 6.7 billion all the way up to 16.4 billion. And let's go to Nvidia to showcase that one.
Oh God, this one's probably insane.
Yeah, so let's see, Nvidia. 2019, 11.7 billion to 2022 of 26.9 billion. So I feel like part of it is that AMD and Nvidia have a lot of hype lately because of their much more dramatic increases in revenue compared to Intel. Intel has been able to consistently increase their revenue, but AMD and Nvidia have really been able to recently, and that kind of drove in more hype.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, looking at this, I was pretty surprised to see AMD's revenue was only at 16.4 billion there. I was kind of expecting it to be a lot higher considering that Intel's is all the way up to 79 billion. That's a pretty big difference there. But I guess that just goes to show you that Intel's been around for a long time and that they obviously have a lot of contracts and, they're pretty established. So I guess that goes to show that, why they have so much. But I was pretty surprised to see Nvidia also under them. But you're right. If they keep up this type of growth in just a couple of years, who knows? Maybe Nvidia will have more revenue than Intel. But I mean, you're right, Mike. That's a pretty good comparison there. And you're right. These stocks have had some pretty crazy growth here. In AMD's case, this is a pretty crazy chart. And, AMD wasn't doing the best in 2014, 2015, but they really turned it around. And I think part of this has to do with, obviously, Bitcoin and everything like that starting to get hyped up too.
For sure. And check this out, Tom. So you're looking at AMD right now. Their market cap is $157 billion. For that $157 billion market cap, they have $16.4 billion in revenue. So keep this in mind. 156 billion market cap, 16.4 billion in revenue. Let's go to Intel, right? We have a pretty similar market cap at around 192 billion, but instead of $16 billion in revenue, you get $79 billion in revenue.
Yeah,
so
it's insane.
You pay a lot less for more revenue. And we could tell this by looking at the price to sales ratio. Look at price to sales, 2.4. Let's go to AMD again. It is 7.1. You know what I mean? So that's interesting.
It really is. And, looking at AMD on the chart, I'll be honest, it's pretty tempting to pick some up. It's so low right now. It's off the high by a lot. And the price to sales ratio is still that high. So I don't know what to think of this, Mike, but I will say it's tempting to grab both. I will say I've been eyeing up AMD for a longer term play as well, but I'm already in Intel down here because it keeps bouncing off this big support level on the daily. But AMD just broke below 100, Mike, and I'm curious when the next level is going to be where it finally starts to even out and maybe start to go back up. And I wonder if how low it's going to go. There's a huge support down here around $80 a share, but we'll have to see what they come out with their next earnings report here soon. Looks like it's actually coming out on the 26th, so that's only 13 days away.
Yep. Earnings season is coming back up, Tom. Be ready.
It's coming too fast, Mike. We didn't even get a break this time.
All right. So looking back at some of these plays, the market is kind of coming back up, Tom. I don't know if you saw this, but Zoom's up almost 3% today, which is quite a bit, which is awesome. I feel like we haven't talked about Zoom in depth in a little bit. So you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, Zoom's looking pretty decent, Mike. I mean, it's all the way down. They actually broke below $100 very recently too. But they're approaching that $100 support again, it looks like. And like if you're looking for a stock for the longer term, I mean, you're not going to get a better like buying point than this with Zoom. Like obviously, if Zoom goes lower, it'll be better. But given what we've seen the past couple years with Zoom, you're getting this at such a good discount right now. And we could go back to that dashboard, Mike, because man, like look at Zoom's revenue growth here. Like this has been getting pretty insane here. They're at 4 billion now, but in 2020 they were only at like 622 million. So this one has really been growing its revenue. Even if we look at this, Mike, like on a quarterly basis here, you can see that the red one is revenue and it's still growing. Of course it's slowing down a little bit because COVID's been, obviously going away, but you can still see the revenues going up even during these months where people really thought it would start to drop. So I think it's looking pretty decent still. And like I said, Mike, they have a pretty crazy discount going on right now, being at $100. I'm not expecting them to get back to 588, but man, even a pop up towards like 200 again seems kind of realistic.
Exactly. And then let's go back to the dashboard for 1 second. So I'm someone who's been bullish on Zoom for a while now, and I still am, and I just plan to hold Zoom for a long time, right? But let's go to the quarterly revenue chart like you had pulled up, Tom. Everyone was saying, oh, when COVID goes away, when the world reopens, Zoom's gonna have the revenue drop. And it's like, it's been the exact opposite. Like, they continue to post record revenue every single quarter. Every single quarter, Tom. And the world is not locked down anymore for the most part. It's like, you know what I mean? And I just think that I feel like Zoom has been at two extremes for most of its trading history. Let's look at the stock price really quickly. Obviously, when the world shut down and the Fed was printing a ridiculous amount of money, like when the market was first really bad when COVID hit, Zoom got very overvalued, right? It went all the way up to $588.84. $588.84, okay? It was overvalued, okay? But at this point, at $109.35, I believe it's undervalued. And that's why I've been buying and selling puts and buying even call options. So I really like Zoom at this level. The fundamentals don't lie. They're doing a great job. And I remember on their last earnings call, their CEO talked a lot more about continuing to update their platform and add new features. So I'm excited for it, and I think it'll be pretty good.
Yeah, and let's be honest, like everyone kept saying, Zoom's going to go away because people are going to get back to person-in-person contact and everything like that's going to go back to normal. But I really think that COVID kind of changed the world in a way. Not everybody is going back to in-person jobs and stuff like that. I know a lot of people, Mike, who used to be in person that are still at home, and they're probably not going to go back to in-person because number one, it's cheaper for the companies. Number two, it's more, it's obviously more convenient for employees and stuff. And, number three, it's just that the overall world isn't dropping this stuff. Like colleges still do this, businesses still do this. We see Zoom all over the place, and whether it's Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever it is, people are still staying online. So I think that's a good thing to see, and their revenue is definitely showing that. Now, I will say, Mike, like it looks like their revenue is starting to slow down a lot, obviously, and who knows? They might report a very slight drop, or maybe like they might stay about the same or something like that. But that's pretty good, especially like you said, because a lot of people have been forecasting like a big revenue drop, and we just don't see that happening.
Yeah, exactly. Like, sure. I mean, of course it's been slowing down because when you obviously have the whole world locked down, it's hard to beat that type of revenue growth. And like you said, like even if it's stagnant or it drops a little bit or it rises a little bit, it's like, look at the level that they're at now compared to where they were, like even when they were trading at $588 a share. Like it's just like, it's crazy. But I'm a pretty big fan of it, and I think it's going to do pretty well. So I'm definitely excited for it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of stocks right now that I'm personally excited for. There's a lot of stocks that are down at lows like Zoom right now, and I know we always talk about DraftKings, that's another one. I'm pretty excited about Corsair. I hope they do better. Logitech's another one. They're kind of like Corsair, but they're down around their lows again. I know Unity's one that I really like for the longer term down here, and they've been bouncing a lot around this $80 support. Yeah, I'm eyeing up a lot of longer term plays down here, Mike, and obviously the market, a lot of people are scared right now because we have obviously rates going up. The SPY's been starting to fly down here over the past few months, and it's just been getting really volatile. So it's going to be tough, but I feel like getting some longer term plays here, especially in the growth sector, will be a good way to go. Maybe some of these plays that are still up at highs might not be the best to get, but like whenever we look at stocks like Unity, like I said, or Zoom or DraftKings, I mean, it just seems like they're at such good buying opportunities. Like, even if you have to hold it for a year before it finally comes back in the green, I mean, I feel like there's still some really good opportunity, and you can keep adding in and selling covered calls on the way up.
Yeah, and like I know we've been saying that for a while now, Tom. But when there's great opportunities don't come around too often. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of what makes them great opportunities. But even if this isn't the bottom, which no one knows the bottom, like, if the stock's at a good level, historically the best thing to do is buy the dip and just hold, So we'll see what happens. But while we're on the topic of Zoom, we have Jerry saying the stealth variant might be helping Zoom out a bit. Yeah, that's true. New variants and, even everything going on in Shanghai and China and all that stuff, that can definitely be helping out Zoom a little bit too, just like Jerry said. So good stuff there. Tom, it looks like the market is looking pretty good today. I have a lot of stocks booming up.
Yeah, they are. They're booming. I mean, these airlines are still going. I know Delta, which flew up with earnings, isn't necessarily exploding right now, but what's interesting is Southwest is having a really nice move. They're up 4.7%. They're flying up. AAL is continuing to fly up as well, up 8%. So these airlines are really ripping up. Like I said earlier, Mike, like they broke some pretty big supports. Like AAL started breaking out above 1725 there. That was a huge break. And, ever since then pre-market, they've just been flying up. So a lot of these stocks are starting to break out, and it's definitely looking nice. Twitter's another one that was moving well, that was surprising me, and looks like it might be starting to slow down, but, it's still up here around this high today. So that's good to see. Even AMC is in the green, Mike. So we'll have to see what happens today, but looks like a lot of growth plays are doing very well. Even Plug Power's doing good, and RUN. I should say RUN's coming back, but it had a bad opening, but it's been ripping back the past few minutes.
All right, sounds good. Looks like CrowdStrike is running up there too. Looks like they're up almost 4%, but it's been a pretty good opening so far. What else? Looks like Disney's looking decent. Let's see Snapchat really quickly. Yeah, Snapchat's not looking too bad either. So there we go. Gold's not doing too bad. Yeah, it's not a bad morning.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. Let's see gold actually. GLD on the chart. Yeah, it's kind of consolidating, not doing too much yet. And market open, it tried to run up, but it kind of got rejected there. But hopefully we get like a second leg up today. That would definitely be nice. It looks like we are seeing one stock in the red today that kind of surprised me, Mike, is ABBV. This stock was flying up on the daily chart, and if we look at this thing on the 1 year daily, it was getting pretty overextended there for a while, and man, it looks like we're back on the downtrend. I wonder how long this one's going to go down for, Mike, because I mean, it went up for so long that it was like blowing my mind. So I'm curious if it'll like maybe come back down to that 150 support or something. I don't think I'd be too surprised just because of how volatile it's been.
True. It looks like Walmart and some of these other retail stocks are turning over a little bit too.
Yeah, let's see. WMT. Yeah, definitely. They were hitting highs of like 158 there, coming back down. Target was another one that was doing well, and yeah, they're kind of consolidating. So yeah, we're definitely seeing these like value plays start to slow down a lot. And I wonder how Caterpillar looks, because that one's been one of my favorites lately. And they keep ripping up at market open. I don't know what it is with them, but it seems like the past few days when the market opens, they keep getting these big legs of the upside, then they sell off throughout the day. But yeah, today was another pretty decent day so far for Caterpillar, but we'll have to see if it ends up like yesterday or not and sells off all day.
Yeah. All right, let's see. We have Jerry saying, does it look like the SPY is pulling back? Let's take a look. SPY. Oops, give me 1 second. All right, so it's up 0.16%. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely pulling back right now. It really struggled at that 440 level. There's a little bit of resistance right there. Tom, I am seeing like a slight... I wouldn't even call that a higher low. Initially, I was going to say like a higher low compared to yesterday's low, which I guess you can say, but I would just really call it a triple bottom. You know what I mean? From today's low compared to yesterday's low, and then yesterday in pre-market. What do you think?
Yeah, I would definitely call it that as well. And, it's right around that 437.50 area. So that definitely makes sense. It's a pretty decent level there. Even 438's been a pretty big support. So, there's been a lot of bounces around this area. And, down there at 436, that's the main level I'm looking for. Like, if we could start to break down below that, I think the SPY might sell off in a big way today. Because, like you said, it's been kind of like triple bottoming here. So I think we just need to like wait for like a nice breakout one way or the other. I feel like if we start breaking out above 442, the SPY could start to move back up. But it looks like today we got rejected here at 440. So, well, I should say ever since market open, we got rejected at 440. In pre-market, we got rejected up there at 442. But, there's so much that goes into these stocks in pre-market that sometimes it's just kind of a parabolic movement. But so far today, it's definitely looking like it's coming back down, Mike. And if it breaks that triple bottom, I'll be pretty worried about it. And, with the way these banks were falling earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if SPY maybe started breaking down, but hopefully the banks start holding up because, so far today, it looks like JP Morgan's holding its ground decently well after falling.
Yeah. So, Jerry, officially, like, the SPY is pulling back right now. Personally, I'm just expecting consolidation right now. I'm not really expecting, like, a full-on break of 436.65, which was the low of yesterday, but... Then again, the market can do anything it wants. But yeah, I mean, I'm just expecting consolidation. It would be pretty hard. Actually, you know what? Let me check something, Tom, because what I want to do is look at the biggest holdings and see how they're doing. Like, for example, like on a day where Apple is, like when Apple, Microsoft, and Facebook and Google are all up like 3%, like it's hard for the market to pull back. So basically what I'm doing now is looking at how some of SPY's like most or heaviest weighted stocks are doing. Tom, can we pull up a chart of like Apple and Microsoft really quickly? I just want to see something. Let's see. Yeah, I mean they are looking a little bit weak right now, but nothing too crazy. Like the airlines are doing very well today, but those have a light weighting in the SPY. I mean honestly, Tom, the only negative like industries I'm seeing in the SPY right now are the bank stocks, and like even those aren't looking too bad. So I'm really just expecting consolidation.
Yeah, personally, I think we might see more downwards movement, but like you said, it's going to depend on what these tech stocks do. Because like I'm sitting here looking at Microsoft, and man, Microsoft has been weak the past few days, Mike. Like while Apple's been holding its ground, Microsoft just keeps selling off to the downside. So we're going to have to see what happens with this one. There is a pretty decent support. It looks like around 280. So I guess we could watch that. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough one with the SPY today. Like you said, it's probably just going to end up holding its ground and probably trading between a range here, probably of like 438 and 442. It'll probably just end up staying between there. But, I hope we get some good price action, Mike, one way or the other. And, if it goes down, then we'll just have to play it down. But, we'll have to eye it up and see what happens. But the good news is that there's some good levels. Like you said, that triple bottom will be a nice level to watch. So as we do consolidate, at least we can watch that. And, I will say, Mike, like with the way SPY's setting up today, I think I would personally just rather go play like some random stock, maybe not a random stock, but, I'd rather play probably Apple itself or Microsoft or something like that, rather than playing the SPY, because it just, like you said, it just looks like it doesn't want to do too much. And it's probably just going to sit here all day, probably, and stay within a range.
The tech stocks are the key, Tom. Let's see. So watch the Apple, Microsoft, Google, Facebook, NVIDIA, Amazon, Tesla, stuff like that. A lot of times they lead the SPY. So great question, Jerry. And then we have Sherry saying, so Tom, we have Sherry long NVIDIA, and we have Jerry with NVIDIA puts. So let's take a look, Tom. Looking at NVIDIA, what are you seeing?
Man, it's kind of like the SPY today. It's just been consolidating the past couple days, and it's holding its ground at this 215 support. I'm not expecting a huge sell-off with NVIDIA here, but I'm not expecting either like a rip way back up to 230. I will say though, Mike, like it's holding its ground pretty well here at some of these supports. Personally, I'm just going to eye up to 215. If it breaks back below that, I think I'll turn bearish on it. But so far today, I think it's bouncing pretty well. And, I think it might end up holding its ground, especially since it's been going down for the past like 5, maybe to 7 trading days in a row.
I think it's also going to hold its ground. And Jerry, always trust your gut. Like literally anything can happen. But check this out. Tom, let's go to a daily chart really quickly. So Sherry mentioned how NVIDIA was upgraded. So normally that can bring in some positive momentum to the upside. They have a price target of $280. So that's good. But check this out. So over like the past 2 weeks, NVIDIA went from 290 all the way down to 213, you can say. So it's like it had a pretty decent fall. So I'm also expecting it to hold its ground. But like I said, Jerry, trust your gut. Literally, trust your gut. The market does crazy things sometimes, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, and this is going to be like the 4th test of this big support down here. Like Mike said, around 206 to 210. There's been a lot of bounces within that area, so keep that in mind. We might end up falling through that. Who knows? We'll just have to see what happens. But I feel like we might hold the ground at least today. If we do fall through it, I would think it would be maybe later on in the week or something like that. But we'll have to see. But there's definitely some big levels coming up, Mike, around 210. 215 is a big level today. As far as resistance coming up, there's some big ones around 225 and then 230. So definitely lots of levels to look at. And, AMD is another one that's moving very similar today. It's holding its ground and it's trying to come back. It's probably not going to explode, but, I think it might hold its ground after this big downtrend it's had.
All right, there we go. And then on another note, we have George mentioning CrowdStrike. So let's see, CrowdStrike. I know that one was doing very well earlier today, and it's still doing very well, Tom. So yesterday, CrowdStrike was wild. Like it exploded up early on, and then ended up giving a lot of its gains back. But like we're almost right at that high of day from yesterday.
Yeah, we are actually. I wonder if that's going to be a big resistance up there around 236, and I think it will be because there was a couple bounces really close to that one. So I think 236 will be a big resistance for us today. Hopefully we keep going up with CrowdStrike, but Mike, I'm not sure we'll be able to break that today or not. It's already up 5%. I hope it does, but I'm not sure how much it's going to run after that break. So it's tough to play it, but I know this one's definitely been on a big uptrend. And like you said, over the past couple days, it's really been running. And I love how it's on the daily, Mike. Like it's breaking out up above these highs from back at like the very beginning of April, about 13 days ago. So I really like that we're breaking that.
All right, sounds good. Let's see what else we have going on. Let's see. It looks like Upstart is looking decent today, but I'd actually rather talk about Moderna. That one's also popping up on the scanner. Yeah, Moderna I feel like is more interesting. So Moderna is bouncing off of that 150 support level. And this one has been holding its ground for months. Like, it has just been consolidating for a couple months now. So, what are you thinking with Moderna?
I think today this one looks pretty hot, especially with all the COVID news coming out of China. I really think that this might help some of these vaccine companies go back on the uptrend. And Moderna looks like it definitely is today. It's up 4%. Looks like the past couple days it's been holding its ground well. I love today that it broke this 165 resistance. This has been a big level over the past couple days. Like you can see, it's had a ton of bounces on this red line. So for us to be breaking this, I think is pretty positive. And looking at Moderna on the 1-year daily, Mike, they've been consolidating a ton. I think this is pretty surprising to see because you can go look at other vaccine companies like Pfizer, and they've been doing a lot better. But you look at Moderna, and they've been selling off in such a major way. And I feel like that they might go back on the uptrend here, especially with all this renewed stuff coming out of China. And one thing I also like, Mike, is look at their EPS. It jumped to 0.29 there, beating that estimate on the last report. I'm really curious how they'll end up reporting on this next one. And if it goes well, we've seen this company have some pretty big gap ups and gap downs in the past. So I would definitely maybe eye that up for the next earnings report.
Yeah, it's a volatile one. Definitely a crazy one. Looking more at the market, it looks like, let's see. I mean, yeah, a lot of stocks are looking good. I mean, there's actually a lot of stocks breaking highs right now. Obviously, we're not just going to run through every single stock breaking highs, but it's definitely looking pretty decent. You want to do a quick check-in on the SPY?
Yeah, the SPY, let's see it. Hopefully it's coming back, but it's not. It's continuing to sell off here. Like I said, we hit that 440 resistance here right around market open, and ever since we touched that, right around that 100 SMA, we started dipping back down. So it's definitely not looking good today. It's not the best movement from open. I will say though, if we end up holding up around 438 or 436, I think the SPY can still do decently well, but I'm not banking on anything too big yet today, Mike, because like we've been saying, these tech stocks haven't really been doing much. Like Apple's just been consolidating. Like we can look at stuff like Tesla even. They haven't been doing much. Microsoft isn't doing anything / going slightly down. So we're going to have to see what happens. Like you said, those banks were down today. If they start turning back over, kind of like what we're seeing right now, they're starting to turn back over. I think the market might go down into the red. So personally, I think I'm slightly bearish on the SPY today, but like we said earlier, I'm kind of expecting it to just do nothing. And it sucks to see it turning over. And I hate to say I'm bearish on the SPY, but sometimes you have to look at the market objectively.
Yeah. So we'll see. I still think it's going to hold its ground, but as we both know, Tom, the market's crazy sometimes and anything's possible. But just like we said a couple minutes ago, a lot of it depends on the tech stocks, So if Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Facebook, and all them start to turn over in a big way, the SPY will probably roll over. So we will see. On another note, we have Keisha saying, are the oil stocks done? Let's see. ExxonMobil and Oxy. They're definitely selling off today. Give me 1 sec. Oh, wow. Yeah, Oxy's taken... See, what's interesting, Tom, is like Oxy intraday looks really bad, but it's only down 0.75% because it gapped up. So
yeah, exactly. That's a good point. That is a big reason why it's looking so bad. And like as it keeps going down here today, we're probably just going to see continued selling pressure because as we know, Oxy, it's a big volatile stock, and as we know, crude oil has been super volatile the past couple of months, and actually crude oil is holding up well today. It's still up above $100 a barrel, and it's holding up decently well. But these tech stocks, or I should say the oil stocks themselves, like when we look on the daily, Mike, they don't look too bad still. I mean, they're down, of course, but it's not really too much. And I still think that there's a pretty good chance for them to maybe start popping off here, especially since we're starting to see more news come out of Russia. I don't know if you noticed this yesterday, Mike, but I feel like I saw like some increased like media presence in Russia, or I don't know what you want to call it, but there was definitely a lot of articles yesterday about them, and we'll have to see what happens because there's been a lot of statistics and stuff like that coming out about the war.
Alrighty. So I would not call oil stocks done, because, yeah, I just wouldn't call them done. Like, even Warren Buffett has been buying a lot of Oxy stock lately, so you can take that however you want, but, yeah, I don't think they're done, you can say, but we'll see.
I don't either. I think they'll still do decently well, and, with everything going on in Russia, the main thing to me, Mike, is like if you start shorting these stocks right now and then Russia does something and, let's say crude oil, for example, like /CL starts going back up to 130 again. Like, let's just say it goes back not even to 130, even back up to 115. We'll probably see a nice pop again out of these oil plays. So just keep that in mind that, there's always a possibility of like some black swan event with this.
Absolutely. All right, on a different note, we have Hunter sharing some interesting info with Moderna. So Hunter said Moderna CEO is a tissue engineer and hasn't really had any successful launched products besides the COVID shot. They have some cool stuff in the works, but tissue engineering just isn't there yet. Let's see. He also said, like, making the scaffolds isn't the bad part, but applying the forces for, I don't even know, mechanotransduction to take place in a way that replicates what happens in the body is almost impossible because of all the forces acting on the cells in the body. So that's interesting. Very interesting. Tom, what I want to point out related to Moderna, let's check out the dashboard really quickly. Moderna's revenue increase over the past 3 years is like none other, as you can expect, obviously, because of the whole pandemic. But 2019, Moderna's annual revenue was $60 million. Okay? 2019, $60 million in annual revenue. 2021, $18.47 billion. 60 million to 18.47 billion. So that's insane, but I guess at the same time, I guess you can expect that given what happened in the world.
Yeah, and the quarterly's not looking bad either. So even quarterly, it's still going up. So it's definitely still growing, and I'm glad to see it. But you're right. I mean, that is insane, Mike. 60 million to 18 billion. I mean, that is something else, you know. And man, like, talk about an increase in revenue here. This is one of the biggest ones I've ever seen. So this is insane. But you're right. I mean, that stock price is at a decent buying level right now. And you know, whenever he says tissues, Mike, he obviously means like tissues within the body, right? Not like yeah, because like at first I was sitting there like, are they like talking about like some Kleenex stuff or like?
Oh my god!
I seriously thought that because you know, like with COVID and everything, I didn't know if they were gonna come out with like some special germ tissues or like what. But dude, I was so confused for like the first 2 minutes of that. But yeah, I get what they mean now, and that's definitely a crazy thing that they're doing with Moderna. And you know, I'm curious, Mike, because like, you know, like how they keep talking about like Kathy Wood has ARKQ it is for you know, for some of these medical advancements, especially like genomics and stuff, or is it ARKG? I think ARKG.
G.
Yeah, so there's like genomics or genomics, whichever way you want to say it. But I wonder if like Moderna will start to get something like that going. I wonder if that's kind of like what they're going to be going after in the future.
Yeah, I don't know. That's so funny with the tissues. Oh god. Let's see. Yeah, and then Jerry's like, Hunter, mechanotransduction. Like, I was like, what? But yeah, awesome stuff, Hunter.
We need to go to medical school for this.
Yeah, gosh. But yeah, I mean, looking at some other, I guess you could say some other stocks or recent things in the market. Stocks are holding up well, in my opinion. Like, some of these plays are doing decent. CrowdStrike up 6.5%. Delta's still going. Zoom's looking good. DraftKings isn't looking bad. Palantir's not looking bad. So it's definitely not a bad day. So I'll take it.
Yeah, CrowdStrike's breaking above that high of yesterday now, so that's a great one. Like you mentioned with the airlines, they're starting to do well again. Delta is bouncing off that $40 support. We have Southwest just continuing to rip higher, all the way up to 46 today, Mike. They're up 7% now. Like, they're doing better than Delta is, and Delta's the one who reported good earnings. So that's funny to see, but hey, I guess we'll take it. I will say Delta's EPS and stuff was not the best. You know, it actually it came in better than the estimate very slightly, but I remember actually, like, let's go ahead and see maybe some of their numbers here. I thought I saw that their revenue came in just under. Let's see, but the main stuff that made them jump were their bookings, and the fares have been rising, and that's helping to offset soaring jet fuel costs according to the article. So that's the main reason why they're going up. But I will say, like, I'm trying to find the exact revenue numbers here, and kind of hard to find. Let's see. Here we go, all the way at the bottom of the article. Great. So they came in with 9.35 billion versus 8.92 expected, which is good. So that's great to see, and I'm glad to see their EPS came in a little bit better. But the main thing was those bookings. You know what I mean? Like, more people are traveling again, and even with rising costs, you know, people are still getting out there. So that's good to see.
Awesome. There we go. It looks like Tom, this is off topic, but I love you know I love DraftKings, so I wanted to cover it really quickly. This one's having a decent day so far, but then again, like, yesterday was pretty bad, so, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's still like not to the same level as at yesterday, but I figured I'd point it out considering that it is breaking out and it is at the high of day.
Yeah, it is. It's right around it. And, if they start breaking out above like 1670 or something like right around there, who knows? This one might start running. And I love the way it's holding that low of yesterday. We kind of double bottom today, right around there, right around like 1625. So I'm liking the movement. And you're right, it's not looking bad. I feel like it might start coming up and start breaking out here. So I like the movement personally. And look at DraftKings on the daily. It's been starting to consolidate right around these lows. And if I look at it on like a 180-day 4-hour chart, you can kind of see like how drastic some of these supports are. Like the one right here around $16 to $16.20 is huge. Like besides the low right here, if we end up holding right here, Mike, it's going to look like a bit of like an inverse head and shoulders setup, or that's what I would call it. But it's definitely going to hold these supports. And if it does, it's going to set up nicely back to the upside. And like Mike, I just cannot wait till we go on a nice, like maybe month-long uptrend, or once we start going back on like a nice directional move to the upside, I'll be so happy because, of course we'll get like a nice like 5-day uptrend here or there, but I need to see like some solid momentum, maybe up above $30 again. Like we need some nice price action out of this one.
Maybe that'll happen with the next earnings report,
Oh, I hope so. Maybe they'll report some increased numbers, maybe from, the New York legalization and stuff like that. I know that since DraftKings is able to operate there, maybe that'll help boost their revenue up. And, we can see their EPS is still in the negative. And, we've been talking about fundamentals all morning. I wonder how DraftKings has been looking. Of course, their yearly revenue is doing great. Let's check out the quarterly revenue. They had a big jump on their Q4, so who knows? Maybe they'll report some good growth.
Yeah, that's true. One thing that I did realize, though, to be fair, is that DraftKings revenue is like seasonal, so keep that in mind. For example, like major sport events play a giant role into DraftKings revenue. So like obviously when it's like Super Bowl time and all that stuff, like they have a bigger, they have more revenue because there's just a lot more people betting at that time. So it is seasonal. Looking back throughout history, we can see that a lot of times their Q4 revenue is among the highest, and sometimes, or basically every time, at least on the data we can see with the dashboard, their Q1 revenue comes in a little bit lower. So I would not be surprised if the Q1 revenue came in lower than the Q4 revenue, but I think it's very important that the Q1 revenue comes in higher for this year relative to last year. You know what I mean? Like for example, there's not really a point in comparing like Q4 revenue of 2021 to Q3 revenue of 2021. It's more important to compare Q4 revenue of 2021 to Q4 revenue of 2020, because that truly shows you how the company has been growing, depending on what's going on in the world.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really good point, Mike, and good comparisons, because you can definitely tell that. And, you're right, because those big sporting events play a huge role. And, as long as like the Q1 revenue comes in around the same percentage drop as this one, I think we'll be okay. And it didn't fall that much last time. What is this? It fell from 322 million down to 312 million. So it only lost like 10 million there. So that's honestly not too bad. So, as long as we come in somewhere like maybe like 440 million or something close to that, I think we'll be okay. It won't be too big of a drop, and I don't think people will be worried too much. So, I am with you there, Mike, but I'm hoping though it comes in and beats it. But you're right, with it being seasonal, that'll probably be pretty tough. But who knows? Maybe New York will help, but I'm not sure it'll help that much, because you're right. Looking at this in the past, those seasonal numbers, then the drops after have been pretty staggering.
Yeah, for sure. So good stuff there. Give me 1 second. Let's see. I think we basically covered everything, Tom. I think we had a really good stream today. Lots of laughs, and we covered a lot of stocks. At the same time, it looks to be a green day for the most part with a lot of these companies. So do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Hunter, for teaching me about tissues today. It definitely definitely helped me out. And hey, it's always good. No, seriously though, like it was cool to learn a little bit about Moderna too. It's cool to see that they're working on other stuff than the COVID vaccine. And I'm sure that a lot of people knew they were working on other stuff, but you never hear that stuff on the headlines. So good news there that they're getting into some other stuff. But yeah, thanks for teaching me about the tissues. And one stock, Mike, that I'm still keeping on the radar today is Twitter. They are back on the uptrend, and with Elon Musk, being in the company, I think it's a really good one to watch because it's back on the uptrend today. And, who knows, he could say something on Twitter or something and this thing could start blasting, or it could start tanking, keep that in mind too. But I'm definitely going to keep it on the radar with it running up.
All right, there we go. So before we close out, I just want to thank all of you guys for joining. So shout out George, Keisha, Caleb, Hunter, Vicky, Mike, JW, Neighbor J, Raymond, Manny Money, Jerry, Sherry. I think we already got Keisha, Hunter, Chris, and Neighbor J. So thank you guys so much for joining the stream today. We had a great time, and hopefully the market continues higher. Besides that, have a great rest of your day.